How's that?
Yeah, maybe.
Better that way? Right. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to 7 Day Worship Podcast, episode number 28. My name is Klocek. I have been a worship leader for a long time and now a Christian entrepreneur. This is my friend Kris. Kris, how you doing tonight?
I am good. Bump music.
One day, one day, you know, I was talking with two or three different guys this last week about the local worship project. And I bring that up because that's where
Did you
we're
make
not
him
going to
sign an
lose things to
NDA?
Suno. No, I did not. Even though that's my advice that I give to other people. Yes. And I need to make an NDA for those things. But I kind of don't care that much because there's a lot of people trying to make this stuff happen. Um, but people don't want to go through the years of headache of trying to get people to work together and give. It's not like I'm making money off of it. So for them, it's kind of a lost cause a little bit. I don't know. But yeah, I was talking to a couple people. They're going to be giving some music for the MVP, which is going to be great. Some pretty decent songs there, and so I'm excited to be able to keep building this platform out. We got to get to the point to where we can finally do a 3-day night of worship over at the barn. That would be wonderful. That's going to require
Yeah,
some fundraising, but
yeah,
if we
fun.
have an MVP, maybe.
Yeah. And for all those new to entrepreneuristic endeavors, what does MVP mean?
MVP, minimal viable product. Basically, all you want to do is show somebody who's interested in understanding what you're creating or what you've built, your vision, your pilots, whatever it is. They want to see the thing in a minimal way that shows its viability.
It's the bare bones. It's the,
Exactly.
yeah.
What would that be for like a coffee house? What's the MVP for that?
And it's launched or,
Let's say you're
well,
trying to get an investor to help you launch it. Or can you even do that?
yeah, you can. I mean, it would start with probably um, a tasting session. Like this is the product, and figuring out a way to either done it in a hotel conference room or an office conference room or in a home actually, and then introducing the one or two or three key people. This is our head of people or staff, and this is our head of program, and if you're seeking investment, that would probably be it.
Oh, wow. I should start a coffee house. That sounds way more
Yeah,
fun than what I'm doing.
you gotta have a great product, even, and great could be relative in the market. You were going to, and at least having, like, if you're selling your idea, what makes this place different? Coffee shops are a dime a dozen, and we're trying to hit this thing at this price point. And if the price point is low, why? What's the reason? If the price point is higher, why? What's the reason? And selling someone on the big idea, you know.
Hmm.
But you can talk it all. People have to have a reason to come back. Any business, but especially in a food or hospitality or coffee business, they gotta have a reason to come back, and it's the salted blah de blah, or it's like the best cappuccino, or like the baked goods is huge. And if you can prove you've got a taste that is convincing. And the thing is, most investors don't give a rip about how it tastes. It's just like, when's my return, or it's emotional. I've always wanted to own a coffee shop, just someplace I can go and take my friends. So yeah.
It's awesome. Love that. And there was this one coffee house that was in South Dakota. Great coffee house, doing a lot of wonderful things. Price point was a little bit higher because they were being ethical about their sourcing of materials, and they
Yep.
would spend once every couple of months they would go on a trip out there to do QC, quality control, and also make sure that they were taking care of the people who were doing the picking and the sorting and all that, and paying them good salaries and all that, or helping with that payment of salaries. And so they charged extra, but their thing that they were known for was they would roast their own hazelnuts in
Oh
house.
wow.
So
Yeah,
they would do
cool.
like candied hazelnuts, and then they would give you like a whole handful of that on your hazelnut latte. Was like their thing, and so it was delicious. And those
Can I
hazelnuts were fantastic.
can I throw out a shameless plug for a friend?
Please.
So what you're talking about, coffee and helping producers and also I think you can include staff in that. Feast. Check out Feast Coffee, and they're based in Reading. But a friend of mine who used to work for me, he actually left and went and started his own company, and they're doing amazing things. He probably goes down there at least quarterly, relationships with small farms and producers, and is in projects with them. Whether it's I haven't checked it in a while, but food based or schooling education or whatever. But legit, solid, integrity, full of integrity, and it's great coffee, great bakery, baked goods. So check them out. Feast.
That's awesome. Feast. Okay. Yeah, I'll get a link to his stuff and throw it down here. That's awesome. Does he ship, or is it just all local?
Yeah, they ship. Yep, visit
Okay.
for
Do they
sure if
roast
you're
their own?
local. But yep, roast. He's a world class roaster, man. He knows what he's doing. He cares so much about it. And his wife, the whole thing with Feast, his wife, they do, they'll do dinners and it's community events, and they're publishing a magazine for a while. So it's more than just coffee's part of it, but it's the hospitality and the family and building community and relationships and loving each other. It's really really great stuff.
Okay. Okay. I think I found him. Hold on. Is this it?
That's it. That's Eric. That's my boy. There he is.
That's
That's
Eric.
the owner.
Okay.
His wife
Love that.
probably took the photo. It's like they've done it all. Like they really bootstrapped it, and he started. I don't know, maybe I don't know if it's been 10 years yet, maybe 8, but
Mm,
they bootstrapped it, but it's just growing, and they've had a lot of favor and blessing, and he's a real deal.
that's
Chocolate.
great.
They're
I
doing
love that.
chocolate now. Look at that. Wow.
Doing
Yeah.
chalk this thing. Yeah, that's great. That's a good name.
Yeah, it is a good name. I
Name.
mean, check out the logo. It's like
Yeah, the logo. It's a pour over
it's like
deal.
pour over or wine glass, like kind of how you see it. Like it's kind of like this
Mm,
reversed image thing. But yeah, it's really cool. Cool thing they're doing.
cool.
And all those
Love
coffees are
that.
saying, all those coffees are selling are relationships. Like they know the people. Like you call them up, they're texting them. It's
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's what it says like on the bottom, I think, right? Yeah. Source long-term farmer
yep.
partners. Yeah. Exceptional coffee, relationally sourced. Yeah. That's great.
Look at
Love
that.
that.
They take Visa. There's a Visa badge down there. So there's no excuse not to buy.
Yeah.
I
Speaking
have
of
no
that, I mean, I was
financial
out.
interest anyway in any of that. Just great if you love nerding out on coffee, go nerd out with them.
I mean, I want to nerd out with you for a little bit on coffee because we
Yeah.
we haven't really talked about that. I'm a huge coffee dude now but I mean, in Seattle, when I went to Washington, I remember I thought Starbucks might be the pinnacle of coffee,
Hmm.
unfortunately. And then I got there and I started. You're saying coffee houses are like dime a dozen. That's so not the case in the Midwest,
Right.
right? So like in Chicago and all that, it's maybe hot dogs are bratwurst, but definitely not coffee. And so coming out to Washington, it was like, man, there's some really good coffee. And then I started making my own coffee, started doing a little bit of roasting and playing around with that kind of stuff, and just super into it. I'm not the obsessive like I'm not going to get into it to the point of not having fun anymore or like being able to drink a Starbucks with somebody and being a snob to that point. Like whatever, it's coffee. I'll take drip Folgers if I have to. Like who cares? But if I can help it, I love a good cup of coffee that
Yeah.
I can geek out about and grind up my own beans. And I got an easy presso that I just like squeeze the
Yep.
espresso beans and like manual and all that. So I love it. But in Seattle, what's kind of like the generic taste. Like, what is that flavor profile that people love in Seattle overall? Like, it kind of averaged out because there's so many. So I don't want to like niche it all down. But if, because I got my thought on it for Seattle, what people like the flavor, taste of the profile. But what do you think in Seattle area?
Well, I would say this is probably not coffee nerds because coffee nerds don't buy the most coffee, right? It's the and it's right. There's drive ups everywhere that aren't exactly nailing it, but I would say probably the flavor profile for most, majority people buying it's got to be what they might call a dark roast. Dark roast,
Hmm.
heavy. I mean, the joke, French press. You know, there was a joke for a while, or it's French press was, 4-ish minutes. You put it in a press pot for 4 minutes, and then some places you order it Seattle style, which means 5 minutes. you know, they want it thick and juicy, and or not juicy. That's the wrong word. Thick and sludgy, and the sludgier the better because it's got to hold the milk and cream and sugar. And, I don't know. That's be my guess.
It's
What's your
funny.
guess?
No, I think so too. I mean, like Seattle coffee is probably the thing that you see when you come out in the airport, SeaTac and all that. You're
Mm-hmm.
gonna see some Starbucks, but because I mean, it's the home of Starbucks is Seattle and Pike Place and all that. But then you've got Seattle coffee that's also there. They're both on that dark kind of burn the coffee kind of flavor profile, and the reason why is really just consistency. It feels like more than anything when you have tons of places that you're trying to sell the exact same flavor to, like a fast food restaurant, you're going to get the most consistent flavor the more that you start getting close to burning the beans in the roastery. The less that you do that, the more individual those coffee beans come out. They can taste, they have more variations in their flavor profiles.
Yep.
And so to keep that consistency, they don't burn them, so but they roast them a little longer than most people would roast them because it's consistent. That's
Yeah.
what I've heard, and so that's what I've noticed when it comes to Seattle. But then you got your whole other subculture of people from Washington in general who are just total coffee snobs.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean they just want the roastery to kiss the bean, and then they want to grind it. Want as many floral notes or flavors as I could possibly squeeze out of this one little bean. It's just insane. I mean, I personally I like medium or lighter roasts, but I like it to be more on that nutty, molassesy, chocolatey kind of flavor profile. I'm not a big floral guy. I can't stand floral right now. Acidic, it's okay. Maybe like a cherry or an orange or something, zest to it, but definitely not some of the other stuff that people geek out about. What are you like? What's your flavor profile?
It's like a medium, not dark, not overly, and my go-to in the morning is, your French press and a dab of half and half, and when it's just right and it hits, and you're looking out at your back deck in the morning, it's like great. But if I go to, favorite shop in Seattle, which would be Storyville, of course, I'll order a cortado, and they make a coconut cashew milk that is unbelievable. It's a homemade one, and it is so good, so good.
Hmm,
So
that's awesome.
yeah, they're a great
Okay.
roaster. Yeah, but I mean, there are so many great snobby shops in Seattle that are doing it great, but there are snobby shops doing it wrong, I would say too. But there's some passionate people out there, and so it's fun to do a coffee tour in Seattle if you're out here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, speaking of that, today I asked, just for anybody who watches this on the repeat, I asked Chris to just bring me something to chat about today that he could just throw at me, and then I was going to do the same thing to him. And so we didn't really plan anything out. We're just kind of hanging out and being a little less scripted than normal. And I was telling Chris this before. Um, I'm not a very scripted guy in general, which is probably weird for somebody who does a lot of sales on the back end and stuff. Maybe it's because of that, that I just don't like it. I like being a little more free flowing. And And so just having a dynamic conversation, it's something I've kind of yearned for here. And they happen, structure is good, but at the same time, over structuring something is a lot of work and not a lot of reward in the conversation a lot of times. And so I think just I'm trying this out, and Kris and I always have really engaging conversations. And so thought we'd play this a little bit more off the cuff today and see how we like it. But for me, Kris, I wanted to throw something at you today. My thing that I wanted to bring up was just work. I've had a lot of people talking about work, and that I've been talking to, and one of the things that I've heard a few times over the last couple of weeks has been this idea of, um, well, God hasn't really called me to, such and such when it comes to engaging people uh, for the Lord, or He hasn't really put me in a place to do that, um,
You're saying
or He hasn't really.
they want to, but don't feel like the door's
Yeah,
opened, or
or
what?
well, it's like you're sharing stories with somebody about, I had a conversation with this guy, and blah blah blah. It was really cool. We got to talk about, or we got to pray for him, in that conversation or something. It led to this. And then you just ask them, like, what about you? What do you got going on? Like, anything going on lately with you and what the Lord's been calling you to do? And then I'll ask, like, what about work? And because I've been part of the ministry, that's been kind of a response back, has been something more to that effect. When I don't do that, anymore, I'm contracting with non-Christian companies right now. Um, and so but I think the gut reaction is just like, well, I mean, you do that because that's what God put you in the place to do. It's not really what He's done for me. And so for me, it was interesting just having that tossed out there. And I'm curious what your thoughts are. If you have any stories, I mean, you've got coffee house experience behind you and other things that God's called you to that hasn't been church related. What would you say to somebody when they're coming up to you and, you know, pushing back at maybe their, I wouldn't say obedience and be harsh on it, but when they're starting to get a little defeated, you know, on this idea that they can't really effectively do ministry because of the job that they're called into or where they're at right now? How would you help encourage that person? And do you have any stories about that?
Yeah, sure. Can I ask to clarify? You're saying someone that has their, say, if you say the marketplace, so that would be not like you're in a job that is not in a church or professional Christian structure. So
Yeah,
they're
let's say
working,
somebody's working at Panera Bread or,
yeah,
or a medical
but
institution.
they're hoping to do something in the church, or they're saying,
They're not filled with a bunch of stories about doing work for the Lord in their workplace. And their excuse has been, well, God hasn't really called me into that, a place where I can do that.
mm,
So like whether it's ministry or it's missions, like they kind of have a veil over their head thinking that it has to be called to something related to ministry in order to do more ministry there or be
yeah,
more
well,
effective or more called.
there would be nuance to it, of course, over a coffee probably and a pastry, but like at the end of the day, I would break that mindset in the name of Jesus. Because like we are all called to. I mean, the first scripture I think of is work unto the Lord and not unto man. And I talk about this with my son, who works at the athletic center, and like if and it would be a typical entry. So like this could be a typical chatter or script that a entry level position could recite, which would be my son's job, or a barista job, or you're a line cook, or you're just getting your job in the restaurant business or something, right? Someone fresh out of high school or in high school, or they're 18, 19, and be like, oh, the manager doesn't know, they don't care. This is going to relate to my question down the road for you, by the way, which is interesting. Like they're going to be, they don't notice, it doesn't seem they care, they didn't even train me. Like my training was like a 5-minute conversation. They said, here you go. So, it kind of doesn't matter, whatever, I can wear whatever I want, no one cares. And it's like, wait a second, you're working for the Lord, because the Lord sees. And and that doesn't mean you're evangelizing in the workplace and like, hey, you on the treadmill, let me tell you about Jesus. Like, that's you're not doing that, but it starts with your mindset and your attitude. Like, I've been given this opportunity, someone's willing to give me money and they would want me to do something well. Like, I work for the Lord. And even if your boss is paying attention and they're leading well, which would be rare these days, and they know how to build a culture of, as Seth Godin says, people like us do things like this in a positive way. Even if they were doing that in the best case, your ultimate authority is the Lord. So if you're working for the Lord, not for man, in a negative, if your leaders are ignoring you and aren't leading, well, you got the greatest leader in the universe that tells you how to show up on time and do the right thing and don't take cash out of the till and work as if their eye is on you, because his eye is on you all the time. You're not, and so it's just a mindset of like, I'm gonna do well, as if and that is also where your confidence comes from. That is where your identity lies. Your identity doesn't lie in, oh, they didn't notice me. It doesn't matter, because the Lord sees you and the Lord knows you, and getting your identity and not placing identity in pleasing a boss, which can also be negative when they are paying attention. Like, so there's that. But then if you are aligned with the Lord in that way and working with that mindset, if a great leader intercepts you and is paying attention and is there, their standards are never going to be higher than the Lord's. And so by serving the Lord, you're going to serve your manager, your boss, who wants you to do well. And I mean, I think that would be the overarching concept, but it could break down into utilitarian, like, and I would coach things with humor. Somebody like my son punches in on an app on his iPhone. So if we were like, okay, let's adjust your mindset of resetting this workplace, that this is the Lord's territory and you're working for him. Every time I would coach this, actually. Every time you log into your app, before you log in, because you're going to look at this picture I'm going to tell you about before you punch in, not punch in and then look at your phone at the picture. Let's make an AI generated picture of Jesus dressed up as your accountant, dressed up as a boss. Like, okay, hi boss. Like, just like reframe it up. Hi boss. Nice to see you today. Like, oh, I'm on time today. You're having a conversation with the visualization to set your mind. Oh, I'm conversing with the Lord. I'm checking in with my boss today, and now I'm punching in. And so coaching things like that with humor and just changing your mindset and be like, hey, here's, ways to challenge a worker. Hey, today, before you grumble, and even if you're grumbling in your heart, I want you to think of 3 things you're thankful for. Name 3 things that's great about this job before you complain about the one thing that, and so you're just training the mind to not let negativity change your thing. And then the other thing I'm thinking about is Paul, after his conversion. Think about this. I've been reading a biography on Paul, so it's a little bit fresh. Is it Ananias that comes and prays for him? Is that his name? He falls, has an encounter, scales. He's blind, goes to a house. The guy comes and prays for him. Scales fall from his eyes. What does that mean? His vision changed. A veil was removed. Like there's something that says scales fell from his eyes. I might think those scales were there before, Did he not? This is wondering, conjecture. Scripture didn't say this, but I wonder. He had the scales on his eyes before his conversion, because without the Holy Spirit, we can't understand Scripture. So he's seeing it through the way he was raised lens. There was actually scales preventing him from seeing clearly, from understanding Scripture clearly. Then he goes dark, he's blind, and the scales fall off, and he gets his eyesight back. Anyway, he gets revelation in the Spirit. He gets told what you're going to do. You're going to go to the nations. A prophetic word, right? Could we call it that? Hands laid on him, he's prayed, gets healed, gets his sight back, baptized, eats food, gets this word for his life. And then he goes to Tarsus, right? He goes back home. He goes to Tarsus for whatever it is. Is it 7 years, 8 years? And what is he doing? He's making tents. So this big encounter, Jesus comes and talks to him. Blinding light, is blinded, gets healed, set free, delivered, a call over his life, and he goes and sits on it and then he's away in the desert or whatever. He's gone for, there's like this 14-year gap between that and when he really starts doing something. And what is he doing with his days? He's mending tents. He's in the family business. He goes back and he's working with his family. He's landing, he's finding himself, he's thinking while he's working about this new faith he has, this new revelation he has. And so even Paul, so when we read the book of Acts, which is the story of Paul, and it's whatever odd chapters it is, 28, 30, whatever, is it 22? I forget how many chapters. But it looks like it's a page turner, and today this happened, and then the next day, and then the next, it looks like there's, the book of Acts is a month, except for the parts where it says he stayed there for a year or two. But in actuality, that span of time is 40 years. And so I think in modern day times, we lose this perspective of there is spiritual formation. Paul was in spiritual formation at his day job as a tent maker with his family. And then even when it's talking about his journeys, journey 1, journey 2, he's going back and forth, Ephesus, Philippi, Corinth, back to Jerusalem, he's going on Thessalonica, he's going everywhere, and then he'll set up camp, and he's with Priscilla and Chloe, and he's making tents. He is doing his calling, but he's still paying for it. He's got the day job, and I think there's this thing in our culture, and it's probably #hustle culture, right? You got to be somebody, you got to do something, and what's your call for the Lord? It's possible your calling is not fulfilling or rewarding in the way the world tells you is fulfilling and rewarding. Jeremiah. Did we talk about Jeremiah last week?
We might have, just because the topic's decently similar.
Yeah, Jeremiah 2.
Yeah.
He's sent to the nation of Israel. And he says, in Jeremiah 2, it says there's two things. He's got a message. You have forsaken living water, and then you've built cisterns to hold the thing you're replacing the living water with. Not only have you built the cisterns are broken. So it's like a double #fail. You have not gone after the living water. You've gone after religion or things, idolatry. You replaced the living water, and now you've built cisterns, broken cisterns. You've built systems that are broken to hold the thing that will not help you. Like it's a double fail. And Jeremiah gets this message, and isn't it ironic that the king actually throws him into a cistern? Like the prop, the prop in the prophetic act, the performance art prophetic act of saying cistern, he gets thrown into. Did Jeremiah fulfill his calling? Did he sign up? Did he have a choice? And he's like, God, like, what? Okay, okay, God, we're in negotiations. Yeah, I've got interview 3 with the Lord Almighty. It's going okay, but his benefits plan is sus. I don't really like the working hours. Some days I can't wear clothing. I have to go up to 21 days without food. I don't really sure about if this is gonna work. I'm trying to move up in my career. He gets thrown in a cistern with muddy water, probably sewage. I mean, he's dying. He hasn't ate. Think about that. He's waist or chest deep in mud, defecating on himself. Sorry, hasn't ate, starving, and an Ethiopian saves him with. Goes to the king's, the garment center and finds all the scraps and makes a rope and pulls him out. Well, that wasn't a fulfilling career. Did he fulfill his calling? Okay, and then you go to Hebrews 11. Those were sawn in two. Some people think that was Isaiah, talking about the faith chapter. You got John the Baptist, beheaded. Did John the Baptist fulfill his calling? Wearing garments of flesh, eating bugs and honey, in the desert, no home to lay his head, or rejected a home. Put in prison, beheaded. Did he fulfill his calling? Stephen preaches the resurrected Jesus, stoned to death. Did he fulfill his calling? The Lord Jesus did fulfill his calling. Rhetorical question, but his calling was to be nailed to a cross, and it says he went there as a sheep to the slaughter without complaining, in humility. Did he fulfill his calling? Yes, but he had to go through death. He had to die to be resurrected. And so I think if it's possible, so you take all those examples and many others in Scripture, you could fulfill your calling and not be comfortable. To say it very easy. You could fulfill your calling and not be comfortable. You could fulfill your calling and not have money. You could fulfill your calling and not have a family. Some are called the celibacy or singleness. You could fulfill your calling and not have children. You could fulfill your calling and ultimately actually be killed. And so there's this perspective, I think, about what a calling is and how you fulfill it. And so if I was talking to someone with that question, we could dig around and I would be friendly about it, but also try to paint a reality for them of reframing your thinking about your work and your life. Like, work is a blessing. We need money to live, but so like, what is it in your season of life, whether you're at the coffee shop or you're cleaning treadmills and rowing machines and weights at the recreation center, the athletic center. You're waiting tables, you're in the dish pit. Like, what is it about this job? And if you said this job isn't forever, probably, but Brother Francis, we'd probably have a little reading on Brother Francis, who talked to God while he's washing dishes, right? Practicing the presence of God. How can you bring the Lord in your workplace? Not necessarily through evangelism, but first in your heart. And how does that change your attitude about this season? How can you save and spend your money wisely? And praying about what's next. And, your turn to talk. Like, what do you think of that so far?
No, I think so. For me, yeah, I mean, all of the above with things that you've been saying, but then it's also Colossians 3 and the dynamic of that. That's usually probably where I go to, is when somebody will come up and say, man, yeah, I don't have the ability to talk to people like you do, or God didn't call me into ministry the same way he called you. in a ministry, and that's why, I don't have all these stories, or I don't do as much or whatever. It's all right. Just a very basic fundamental strategy for living is in Colossians, all the way from the family to the relationships. It's a very relational passage, Colossians 3. And so as you get into the later bit of that chapter, he starts talking about wives and husbands and wives and children, and the dynamics of the family relationships. And then he gets into the workers' relationships with the slaves and masters. And for them, that was the understanding of what they were relationally to each other. It wasn't it wasn't capitalist. It wasn't a capitalist society. And so we have to infer a few things from that. And that's what's beautiful about the Bible, is that you think of it like it's all wisdom literature, and on some level, then how do we apply the biblical wisdom in our context today? And it's not tit for tat. It's not apples and apples. It's a lot of times you have to say, okay, what is slave and master relationally in the capitalistic society that we have today? Well, it's going to be worker and manager, your boss. It's going to be that relationship dynamic, because you are a slave to the person who is giving you money to be able to pay for the groceries. That's kind of how that works. If you don't do that, the only difference is you can say, I quit and I go make myself the slave of somebody else. I'm not indebted to that person. But unless I put the hours in, they're not going to give me the money to get what I need. And so that's the relationship dynamic there. And what's really cool, I mean, I'll just read it, but Colossians 3:22, slaves, obey your earthly masters in everything you do. Try to please them at all times, not just when they are watching you. Just talked to my son about this today. Not just when they're watching to you. I mean, I gave him the whole God is always watching you little bit, but serve them sincerely because of your reverent fear of the Lord. Getting back to some Proverbs here. Work willingly at whatever you do, verse 23, as though you were working for the Lord rather than for people. Remember that the Lord will give you an inheritance as your reward, and that your master you are serving is Christ.
Yeah, verse 23 is a mic drop. I mean, how do you even, like,
It's what you were saying.
Yeah.
Right at the top. And it's cool because, I mean, the scripture just has so many ways of saying the same thing. And that's where, of course, the guy writing Colossians is going to have that inspiration, reading the scriptures and understanding the dynamics at play, that wisdom, and just referring back to the same thing, right? You're working for the Lord in everything you do. That's got to be your heart posture, is God, whatever I do, I'm doing it for you. Whatever I put my hand to, I'm going to put it to with might. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability, because even though this human over here is my boss and they're the ones paying me, they're not a pleasant person to work for whatever reason, or they are, whatever the dynamic. That's great. God, you're the one that I'm trying to reflect the image of in this relationship. And so I'm going to take my time to think about every work that I commit here in this job as if I was doing it for you alone. If I make this cheeseburger at McDonald's and I do it their way, I'm going to do it their way. And the person that I'm serving it to is going to say, man, that was a good cheeseburger. I'm not just going to slop it on there and get the thing done. I'm going to put that tomato on there the way it's supposed to be put on there, because I'm doing that for you, to show other people that you are worthy of this act. And all the mundane things that I do in life, whether I'm putting a toothpaste cap on something in an assembly line, or if I am flying an airplane with 28 people on board or 40 people on board, or if I'm at a doctor's office and I'm reading the transcripts for somebody else, or if I'm the one performing the surgery, whatever I do, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability because you are the one that I'm ultimately serving in this role. And by that act alone, people can see you because I reflect your image in everything that I do, both words and deeds. And I don't have to say your name in order for them to get a whiff of who you are in this building. So I don't know, like that's what I think when it comes down to it. And so your stories might not be all around like, oh yeah, I geeked out with somebody about Daniel today. It may just not be it. That's totally fine. But let me challenge everybody with one question. Have you ever asked your fellow employees at any point on or off the clock, whatever your rules are that your boss has, have you ever asked anybody, how can I pray for you today? Just that one simple question. I promise that's going to open up some doors relationally. It might close some too, but I promise it's going to do something. Just that one little question. And all it's telling that person is, I care about you. I see you in this moment. And I care enough. I know you're not a religious person, but I care enough about you to show you that the thing I care about the most impacts my relationship with you in a way where I want to be closer to you. I want to give you value in the ways that I hold most dear. I want to bless you. So just those little acts, man, I think those are, even if you're working in a church or working some Christian job, you still lack that story hour from people all the because they're working for the Lord, but they're not working with the Lord. Yeah, those are my thoughts on it. That's a lot for that bit of the conversation. If you don't have anything else with that, what do you have for me, man? Supposed to dump something on me.
Well, it's somewhat related. I would just say, hey, what is something
Hmm?
that you, Casey, what is that I would use this in all my interview questions when I was hiring someone, and they'd made it through. We're getting closer. I would say, what is something you wish a previous employer, who shall remain unnamed, what is it that you wish a previous employer had said to you or did for you? And then I have a follow up after if we need it. But
I've had ministry jobs and secular jobs. Which would you prefer me to get in the mindset of? Because they're probably different answers.
um, since we're kind of talking about marketplace, let's go like the non the
Yeah,
non-Christian, like like
perfect.
job. I want to hear the other one too, but like for where we're at, and I can loop it back around. Like, what is?
No, I think I would prefer doing the non-Christian kind of context for sure in this scenario. Hmm. One thing that I wish they would have done or would have said to me or for me.
And it doesn't have to be negative if you've left the situation and think, oh, they could have formed me better.
I mean, for the most part, in secular jobs, I've had some pretty good bosses. And so maybe the way I'll answer that is something I noticed that I've carried with me and tried to do for my employees that I've seen from those secular jobs. Because I would say the things that I probably would want to be said or want to have been done for me would be to give me the ability to perform my job at the highest level, setting me free. or by saying something like, take control and initiative, make it happen the way you think it should happen. And I've been fortunate enough to have been told that in a couple different jobs, um, where I excelled quite a bit. I would say maybe one job that I had, though, I wish that they had um, followed through with training me themselves instead of passing me off to a system of people who were not quite ready to train. That's probably the one thing that's happened a couple of times that I wish would have happened with some secular jobs. So that's probably super random, but there's not like a lot of like philosophy going on in my brain with that. It's more practical. Why? What's your follow up to that?
Well, a lot of times, especially the younger people, younger um, potential employees are, or even if it's in a management like development conversation, usually it tells you what matters to them, right? So in general, people they want to be in a job where they get along with everyone, or they want to be the supporter, or they want to be noticed, or they just show me the cold hard cash. They're super motivated by the number, like the wage number. They don't care the work environment. They don't get like just how much. Some are motivated by benefits. Some like oh yeah, you can take 2 hours a week to work on whatever that thing is. That would be meaningful to them. Some want sick leave or vacation. Some are motivated by a title. Like they would actually take less money, but they want the title. They don't want to be called manager. They want to be called director. I don't care what it's director of. They're going for that. And so by asking that question, you kind of you can find out what matters to them. And also in a negative where they might have been hurt, or which would affect how they respond in this new environment or behave in this new environment, because they're carrying a fear of something, or they're carrying like they're hedging their bets because of how they were treated. Like having a conversation like that lets you be real and like a teacher in a classroom, say a teacher teaching 30 first graders, they got to present the same thing in sometimes 30 different ways because every kid learns different. Same with managing employees. Like they are motivated by different things, so you can't talk to them all the same. And I would even stretch this now to discipleship or working in the church. People are in this thing for different reasons, and let's just assume they're all good reasons. You could have many good reasons for wanting to follow the Lord, right? And they're all in different steps to glory, and those steps aren't linear. They're different. And so having a base for like where they're at and how you talk to them, it gives you kind of a starting and a check-in point to move together. But here's where I would coach it from what we were talking about earlier. And let's take it back to my son, who was saying, I wish they noticed, or I wish they would have trained, or they can't. You be to the workers and the customers around you the opposite of what you wished your leaders were giving you. So I wish they said thank you. I wish they would have noticed I picked up something and they didn't even ask. So now you reflect that back to all those around you. Hey, coworker, thanks for doing that. Make it a game for yourself to notice what your worker is doing positive and call it out. Right? I wish they would have like asked me if I wanted a day off on my birthday. Figure out when all your coworkers' birthdays are and be like, hey, You want me to cover your shift on your birthday? Or I'll cover it, or if you want to trade, I'll trade. Like, so there's ways to flip the negative that we've perceived happen to us into a positive in your workplace and your culture.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's and I've used that lesson actually in my own life. And you know, if I thought, man, I wish they like I've actually had leaders. Um, Man, I don't think they're doing it right, and the way they're acting makes me feel in this negative way. When I'm leading others, I'm going to ask, what would that leader have done, and do the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can use rather than going in the tank on negative leadership or on, and sometimes it's not even the leaders are busy, right? They might not even be, you know, a lot of leaders, and I would probably be included in this. If it don't fix what's not broke, like if there's not a problem showing up, the assumption is everything's good, right? You have to really be proactive in checking in with people, especially with employees whose world is it's all going right and they look like they're blossoming. Those are the people you got to check in with because
Mm-hmm.
there could be something hidden or something I want to talk about. Like, but if you I lost my train of thought.
No, I mean, I feel the same way, and that's why I've learned to value that weekly check-in point in whatever the employment is. You know, like it's you can't really do that at McDonald's the same way. You know, but you can absolutely still do it. You can
Yeah,
still do it somebody as their manager, and whether it's I'm going to stand next to you for a second while you're flipping the burgers, and I'm just going to work with you on the line while I talk to you for a second. Just ask how you're doing, how's your week, and all that. And actually, some of those times, like scenarios, are advantageous for having that rather than sitting down with somebody when they feel awkward. If somebody's working with you, they're rubbing shoulders with you, and they're more likely to give you a real answer. And and so that's a great environment to actually still
totally,
do that. And
totally.
so I've always preferred that. Like when I'm doing my check-in with the people that I'm employed, whether it's I've employed, which hasn't been often, but more than not, if I'm managing somebody, which I've done many times, then I'm going to ask them those questions while I'm working with them on the job rather than let's sit down as much as I can. Sometimes you can't help it. And you got to become, I think, pretty fluent in both those situations. But the same thing is true for the flip side. If you are the employee and you're the one who's talking to your manager, you have to become pretty fluent in um, having that conversation in the seat with them and exposing reality when it needs to be exposed and letting other things, you know, maybe holding some things back that you shouldn't be talking about. You know, like there's a balance there. Um, but I think it comes down to what you're saying. Like if you want your workplace to be a certain way, then you model that wherever
Yeah,
you're at and start.
yeah. Be the culture you want to be. Like
Mm-hmm.
a basic human humans that like there's a I don't know what we call this. It's not a need or a desire. Like it's just like a marker. People want to be asked, not commanded.
Mm-hmm.
Like they want to hear. Please, could you please? Would you mind? What do you think about versus go clean your room? Like you know like. But in general, people want to be asked. People want to hear thank you. They want to be acknowledged. They want to be seen. They might not want to have a long conversation, you know, those deep introverts, but they do want a recognition or a job well done or I see you.
Yeah. Or Chris, they want to hear their name,
Yet
but not
I'm
in the political way I just said it, because that's what people do all the time. Dude, you know when you've been talking to a polished C-level executive because they say your name every time you ask them a question. It's like one of the first words they say. And then they say, so Chris, That's a good question. And then they'll go into the answer. But they
Yeah,
do that so like all the time. That's the political version of it. I can't stand it. I feel
yeah.
like I'm pushed.
What?
But people love their name.
Yeah, what I was gonna finish with that is like so be if back to the question that you had 30 minutes ago, what do you say that person is like, look, be that person to your coworkers, even the people above you, beneath you. Just notice them, be relational, learn. Hey, can I help? Hey, what do you need? Hey, you did a good job on that. Even if like the deep introvert, like you can, yeah, it's like if it's like the inside joke of something you talked about, like you, hey, I know you don't really like to be noticing, but I'll handle that part with the guest if you want to get this part and do this part. And then you're out front with the guest out in front of, say, the coffee bar, and you look back at the other person and go, and they know you're a team, but they didn't like like you can build camaraderie and unity, uniquely with each of your people, and be that light and be that person dispensing light and kindness and seenness that you might not be getting, and
Mm-hmm.
just change it. You can so proactively, being proactive, you can really change a work dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like everything, for me, the final bit comes down to one adjustment, and that's it. I think if you try to adjust everything or you try to become a person, you might for a few weeks make that adjustment and then you kind of slip away. Um, so I think the things that stick are one, usually things that we tend to do out of desperation. We move quickly and some things can stick that way. It's not a good way for it to work, but it can work in our brains. The most proactive approach I've ever had um, for adjusting anything as a Christian in my life to become more Christ centered and more of that heart posture that suits reflecting his image in any environment has always just been spend more time with him and stop thinking about being the thing in any other situation. Pray for it and obey in the moment, but get to know the voice of the person you're trying to listen to and spend time there. And if you spend more time with him, spend more time learning his voice, you just naturally become that thing. You don't have to try. You just do. It's so cool how you can watch God at work in your life just by being around him. It's just like hanging around with anybody who's better than you at anything. You just become more like that person, or people who are worse than you in life. You become worse of a person. And yeah, just hang around God, because if you want to reflect him to other people, if you can't remember what he looks like, you're not constantly next to him, you're not ever going to be able to show anybody a correct portrait of him. And the cooler thing is, the more you hang out with him, the more he just rubs off on you anyways. So spend time with him and it'll just happen pretty naturally. Not that you shouldn't say, I'm going to do one thing today to try to improve. You should absolutely do that stuff. But if there was like ever a starting point for anything, that's what I'm going to preach until the day I die. I've seen the most transformation of myself and other people through that methodology, and I think that's what the Bible preaches too. I don't know. Final thoughts, Kris. What do you think about people at the workplace? What's some encouragement you can give for people over there as we kind of sign off for tonight?
Well, what you're saying is identity. You're really talking about identity formation, and I was going to say this earlier, but this is a good spot. I think people need permission to not find joy in their work. And that sounds funky, but your pay, the better job, unless your identity is formed and you know who you are in the Lord, no job, no amount of money, no vacation time is ever going to Like, that's not designed to give you fulfillment. Like, you can be fulfilled and happy in a job, but it's starting with the identity formation, and just release yourself. Yeah, it's work, it's a job. That's why they call it a job. That's why they pay you to be there. If it was no, don't pay me. I love brain surgery. I just want to volunteer my time. Like, they like, it's that's how it works. So, but giving permission, like, hey, guess what? This job is never going to take the place, is never going to fill the hole in your heart that is meant for the Lord. I form your identity, and that will take you places. And now you start seeing the opportunity, and now your job becomes, it's not a bed of roses, but it's like, oh, the Lord's with me. I'm carrying the Lord with me. I know who I am. I know I'm supposed to love others. I know I'm supposed to bless others. My boss is paying me. Treat your masters kindly. Work under the Lord, and it changes the dynamic. But if you try to grin and bear and put on the happy face, as you're saying, change at work, it's not going to work long term. And I mean, I talk to guys in their 50s and 60s who hate their jobs, and it's identity formation, and focus on that. Focus on, hey, heart posture. Boom.
Love it. All right, man. Well, I think I'm going to call that one for tonight. We're at 8:02, a little bit over, but that's totally fine. We need to talk about in the next coming weeks. We need to get on some of the conversations with things that are happening right now and things that are moving forward. I'm going to try to get on a couple of these dudes who have graciously given some music to this local worship project, minimal viable product. And so we'll see if we can do that. But I'd love to talk to you about the barn and what the plan is for that, when you guys are hoping to get that launched and finished out, and just geek out a little bit over the things that we're building, and maybe put some stuff up on the screen, like showing some of that and getting some visual representation out there instead of just talking about it. So
Cool.
That'll be fun. I don't know if that's next week or the week after. We also need to talk about AI in the church. I know we got to talk about that. So you let me know as we finish up, this upcoming week or whatever, what you want to do, and we'll make that happen. But for all of you guys out there, thank you so much for tuning in and watching this on the replay or wherever you're watching it.